what is your question?
Do you have a plan to keep gold sellers from spiraling the economy out of control, thus creating more need for gold sellers?
How many gold sellers are we hiring to ruin our economy at launch?
It's a premium service.
We have lots of things that we'll be doing, developing to catch people who are mining the game so that we can get it as quickly as we can. So believe me, we know this, we understand this, every MMO has it. We're taking proactive steps right now to deal with that. But I mean, we don't want to hurt the craft or the economy because of that either. It's a balancing act, you know what I'm saying? Because if you make certain things so hard and difficult, then you can actually hurt the craft and economy, what we don't want to do. Right? We want to balance it out very carefully.
I think something else that's common to most MMOs is that, you know, the security that we want to do and the methods we want to use to combat gold sellers are not things that we are necessarily ever going to want to talk about publicly because then they know what we're doing. But we take it very seriously because we know, you know, it's a problem in other games. Yes?
Based on in-game content, I know that there's a lot of players who enjoy PvE, a lot of players who enjoy PvP, a lot of players who enjoy primary, also some members in-game gear. But most players also are in the field where they like all the basic problems. How are you guys trying to balance that going forward from I'm one to look at balance scale going forward. Now I
We have a lot of analytics that go in there that track a lot of things like this. We have dashboards we look at in real time as well. Oh, the question was how are we going to track things as we balance toward different crafting? There are a lot of different player types that play the games. Have you ever heard of the Marvel Sport? I don't know if anybody's familiar with that. But you have your achievers, you have your people, you know, general types of players, and how we balance that over the period of the play of a game. When it first starts out, everyone's kind of evenly balanced, everyone's kind of working towards that. And as the game grows over time, things get a little bit skewed. We'll be watching that very closely through a lot of the data that we collect and feedback to make sure we try to balance it out carefully, right? Because you don't want tons of burping or anything else going on here. You just got to take it gradually, even though that does happen in MMO because they are rebalancing as the MMO grows over time.
So I think just to go over that again, so the question was, how are we going to balance PvP gear, PvE gear, and crafting gear? And in answer to your question, the best gear in the game is going to come from the PvE operations. So if you want to have the best gear in the game, you have to do the operations. You also can get gear that is nearly as good, but more specialized from the PvP game. Those are our two highest stat gear, and they're also the gear that we reserve some of the best appearances for.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
The one thing I threw out there to sit, because I'm the crafting guy, who's not going to be in there with the crazy killers at the end, is the tier right under that you're going to need to go get into that operation. You're going to come see me.
There's several different slots, and there are some slots that will be specific for the crafters to help with the best PvP and PvE gear. The difference between the PvP and PvE gear is around 10% for one side and the other side. Like if I have PvP gear, I have 90% PvE, if I have PvE, I have 90% PvP. And the crafting can help support that with a couple of the slots. Yeah, we're toying around and testing to figure out specifically what slots those are. They're also on what Daniel was saying, good for sort of getting into different gating of content, different steps of content, as in intro type stuff.
And one thing to mention is the model gear, because that actually will allow you to, because the thing about model gear is you can mod it with mods that are at the highest level, and so you can have, for example, 10th level Jedi Knight robes that look like, say, what Obi-Wan was wearing on Tatooine, which doesn't look so hot. But once you put all the mods in it, it will actually be as strong as some gear that you've got from operations. However, to get those mods, you have to do the operations. So it comes back to, if you want to have the best gear, you have to do the high-level operations content.
Let's see. Right here.
Would you be bad Sith or a good Jedi end up, or sorry, bad Jedi or a good Sith end up switching sides, or is there another effect based on morality choices?
If you choose to be the question was, if you choose to be a dark side Jedi or a light side Sith, will you eventually go so far as to change factions? And the answer is no.
Actually, there's a story behind that. So,
Story time with James Ullman.
so that's something we wanted. From the very beginning, we didn't want to have that. Actually, the very beginning of the game, in 2007, we had 3 factions. We had the Underworld, the
That's a design. That is a design of crazy, by the way.
Somebody get me a Bogon!
And then we realized how expensive that would be.
Anyways. But, yeah, so we discussed trading over, like, allowing people to switch over to the Empire side. But the problem with that in story-based games is it's very, very expensive. Especially for after you launch, you're doing expansions and extra content, because then you go from 8 class stories to essentially 16, and that was the reason we couldn't do it. However, we're always looking at ways that we could maybe add it in the future. You never know, we might figure out that problem, or maybe we already have.
Let's go with Mario. Will Sith Warriors get lightning? Because Malgus does.
Not through making morality decisions. I think it's also worth pointing out, and I think we've said this before, the characters that you see in the cinematics aren't necessarily exactly representative of the game. They're special.
Yes, you all the way back. No, you, yes.
Alright, as far as leveling goes, are we looking at mostly storyline quests for the majority of leveling, side quests, or like instant grinds? And then on top of that, are we looking at any kind of experience incentives to go PvP, a little bit of experience?
The question is, when you're going through your leveling path, what's going to be the majority of time? Is it going to be class quests? Is it going to be grinding through instances? Is it going to be, PvP?
So, one thing at BioWare, we hate the word grind, so there will be no grinding in the game. However, we do want players to be able to choose how they're going to level up in the game. So we have a whole bunch of different paths. There's your class story, which you get a lot of experience points from. You have your world quests, which you can get experience points from. We have something called heroic quests, and they're on every single world. They actually come with the best experience points and some of the best rewards on a world, but you have to do them with a group, so they're for people who are going to group up. We have the flash points, which also are another experience point route. You have the space minigame. You have war zones and PvP, which also gives you experience points. The thing about that is it actually allows you to have a completely different playstyle. So if you want to, for example, play through the game once as a bounty hunter, you could, and you could really focus on your class quests and your world quests. Then you could start off, say, as a trooper, and you could decide, I'm going to be in the PvP game and do the space minigame a lot. And so suddenly you're gaining your experience points in a different way. So you can really customize your experience. You don't have to do all of those activities to level up. You get to choose which activities you want to focus on to get to the end game. We wanted to give players choice because that's what BioWare is famous for, especially when it comes to leveling up a character. And again, we don't want you to ever have to grind. So that's the first thing we don't play.
Unless you love grinding, then go right ahead. That's also your choice.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
How will you be handling threat mechanics in rages or operations and flashpoints? Will it be similar to other MMOs, or do you have a new system?
I believe it was how are we handling threat mechanics in operations? Is that it? Yeah. No, this is my mic.
How are we handling threat mechanics? There are, it's pretty par for the course. Gaining threat, generating threat. We don't have any threat mods or any sort of UI elements at this point in time. We're working on those things and stuff we want to do as well.
Let's go over here. I've been over here. What was that? Yes, sir. Please.
pointing at the other guy. How do you know which one is in?
So the question was, you said in a lot of games, if you've got a good and evil choice, the evil choice is, hey, I'm going to kick the puppy, I'm going to push somebody down a well for no good reason. He said that would work for the Sith Warrior, but what about a Sith Inquisitor or somebody who's, I guess we're looking at a little bit more intellectual side for it. Well, one of the things that's really important when you think about it is that, one, it's not good evil. It's dark side, light side. And there are rules to these things. So one of the things that we were talking about when we were putting the plot together, for instance, if there's a bunch of people who are going to die in an earthquake, who are going to die in a natural disaster, and you go in with your lightsaber and you threaten to kill them all if they don't run their stupid asses out of the house and get to safety, light side. Okay, because you saved their dumb asses. They are alive, it is therefore light side. The light side does not care about, as we see, go Qui-Gon, cheating people, gambling, lying your ass off, right? It is a very, very different nuanced system. The Inquisitor is actually a really fun one to try to play light side with, because the Inquisitor can be the diplomat. The Inquisitor can be the face that Palpatine was putting up there. Yes. The problem is, very often as the Inquisitor, you have a little bracket behind one of your answers that says, shock bone. So, the temptation lever on the Inquisitor is perhaps your strongest one. But yes, the Inquisitor dark side options tend to be very manipulative things, very things that you might not actually see. And dark side, light side changes a lot between the classes. So when you start as a Jedi Knight, your first dark side options are not, hey, let's go slaughter a bunch of people, right? How did you get to the Academy in the first place? Your first things are small temptations. Your first things are going against the Jedi Code. I know one of the big controversial ones is on there. Yes, at the time period our game starts in, romance is a no-no, and if you were a Jedi, you have made an oath around that. So a really easy one to slide into dark side land is starting to chase the love interest. So yeah, it's a much more nuanced system.